20's. Welcome back to The Beauty of Becoming. I am your host, Whitney McDermott, and I am joined once again in studio with one of my spiritual mamas, Debbie Shore. Welcome back.
I'm excited to be here. This could be quite a day.
Yeah. Warning, we have no idea what's going to come out of this conversation.
The good thing is you can scrap it if you don't like it.
There you go. This may be my most edited podcast episode that I have, because as we've titled it, it is dating in your 20s and 60s. And really how this came about was we were on the phone, and Debbie has had just a beautiful 40-year marriage. And her husband Chuck passed away a couple years ago now from cancer.
Almost 3 now.
Wow. It's hard to believe. So she's kind of found herself newly single again. And of course I'm single. And so it was just kind of funny one night. We're just talking like total girl talk on the phone, you know? And she's like, oh my gosh, I feel like a little schoolgirl, talking about this stuff. Because, it's been since you were like 18 or 19 since you had been
back. I got married at 19. So,
yeah.
So
you've been out of the game for a while.
I've been out of the game a long time, yeah.
And I'm like giving her pointers, Because, it's definitely something we both seek, is just a godly companion that is just running after God and can just join us in our journeys of chasing after God. So we were just talking about really what I thought would be more different of just our experiences dating at in 20s and then in your 60s. But really I found a lot of it was the same, just like a lot of the struggles or a lot of the mountains you come up against or whatever, just thoughts. And I'm like, man, we're a lot more alike than you would think. Even though I'm young enough to be your daughter, really dating is dating. And we thought it would be a really cool, but yet there are differences. I will say that.
Actually, we were joking about it. And then here we are.
Yeah. So that's what Debbie was like, we should do an episode on your singles podcast, dating in your 20s and 60s. And I just died laughing. I'm like, that would be cray. Because we love to laugh. We love to have fun. Yeah. We're transparent. So like I said, at least I can edit some stuff out if I need to.
Yeah, I want to precursor this with when Chuck did pass away. He told me, he goes, you're so young. And he said, give me a little bit of time. Don't marry in 30 days. But he said, I want to release you to keep moving forward. He said, you still have a race to run in the things of God. And he said, I couldn't wish any more for you to have a traveling companion that you could minister with or just be with. But he said, always let that person know that I loved you dearly. I adore you. But he said, I'm releasing you to learn to love someone different. Wow. So you're not alone. And there's other things that tie into that. But and he said, I don't want you crippled by this, and I want you moving forward. Yeah. And so that's a pretty huge thing.
Yeah. And that's just how Chuck was, y'all. He's a spiritual dad for my sister and I, and for years. And so he was just an amazing man. And just, being able to release someone that you've loved for 40 years into I know I'm going home, but I want you to, have a running partner for the rest of the race. Is
and
incredible.
I even told him, I said, Chuck, how can you even say that? And he said, it says, till death do we part. And I go, what happens when we get to heaven with our mansions and everything? He goes, I don't know, but we'll figure it out up there.
Figure it out then. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we're going to dive deeper into just what life looks like for you, having come out of such an amazing marriage and becoming single again. We're going to talk about my perspective of never having been married and just having been single. And we're going to have some fun though too as well. And just from the top, I was like, let's do a few games. And so let's go ahead and start out with a would you rather game.
Yeah, see, I don't know anything about this. Yeah, this could be pretty interesting.
I warned her. I was like, there are going to be a couple games. And so I'm not going to tell you what, but just be prepared. So I just have a few of these here. And ladies, as you're listening, I want you to be thinking what would I rather? And maybe if you have friends, you guys can answer these together. But number 1, would you rather be really similar to your partner or completely different?
Similar in some ways, but completely different in others.
But if you had to choose, the would you rather is
probably completely different.
Really? Mm-hmm. See, I would rather be like similar to my partner, because I feel like I'm such like a motivated like person that I feel like if I got somebody that was like way too laid back, we would just be like fighting each other all the time.
See, now, and here's a good thing to describe from the beginning. What I thought you were asking me, someone similar to Chuck.
Oh, okay.
See, this is the difference of our experiences. So when you're saying someone I want to be joined with, no, I'd like to be similar.
Yeah.
Like-minded, like-hearted, like-spirited. So I changed my answer.
Well, you're allowed to do that here.
But see, this is another reason between 60s and 20s.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, we didn't plan that one. Okay, so
there's gonna be a lot of these moments coming out. All right, number 2, would you rather be told you're going on a date or be completely surprised?
I think I'd like to know.
Yeah. That's totally me.
Yeah, so I can be prepared.
Exactly.
You know?
Like, I gotta know what outfit I need to be wearing.
Yeah.
I need to know if I need to pack a swimsuit or, like whatever.
Yeah.
I got to know.
I don't think I'd be worried about packing a swimsuit for me, but anyway.
You never know. There's a lot of places to swim here in Branson, so going to the lake is an option. All right. Would you rather share food or have separate meals?
I like sharing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I'd rather have my separate meal so then I could like take it home and eat on it.
Again, there's plus to both. Mm-hmm. I'm not eating a lot of volume right now, so if I buy a whole steak, I'd rather just have. It's like get the bigger one and I'll just eat a fourth of it.
Yeah.
Kind
no,
of
it totally makes sense. But I'm like such a foodie that it's like, no, I don't.
Yeah, I've been that way before where it's like, stick your fork in their hand, like, get out of my food.
Get off of my plate.
Get off my plate.
I'll give you some French fries, but just that's it. Like the rest are mine.
And I'll scoot the ones you can have.
Exactly. I know the Lord needs to give me more of a giving spirit when it comes to food, but right now it ain't there. All right, this one's funny. Would you rather get matching tattoos or matching piercings?
Wow. This is a new generation thing.
Yeah. I mean, we'll just assume that you're pretty serious, or married. We'll just, for this one, like, would you rather, with your life partner, get a matching tattoo or matching piercing?
I'd probably go for the tattoo.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I don't even have a tattoo, but...
Because it can be put someplace discreet, you know?
Yeah. Which I guess piercings, you could just take it out eventually and it'd go away. But I could do a matching tattoo, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, Beth and Kevin, you know them, our friends. He got a big heart put on his chest with her name on it. And I go, that's really cool. And he goes, yeah, I figure we've been married long enough now after 45 years that I can have this done,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think I'd want to go that big, but something little.
Right. Well, I know some people even like tattoo their wedding band on, which I don't think I'd want to do that because I like diamonds. But I've even seen couples get like, matching tattoo bands.
Some people now, I know several people that they tattoo on their arm or someplace the coordinates of where they met, like GPS coordinates.
Wow. Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. That's something different.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm trying to be hip. You know?
And then the last one is, would you rather be with someone funny or attractive?
Oh, man.
I know, it's a hard one, but...
Eye candy's really good, but I like to laugh.
Yeah.
I'd probably go for the laughter.
That's the same with me, because, like, if you can make me laugh and then you laugh at my jokes, too, like...
Yeah.
That, you got my heart.
Yeah, my timing on jokes is not always really good, though. I'm usually off, and it just kind of falls... flat, but I love laughing.
Yeah.
And if you can laugh at yourself when you're not being that funny. But
I know.
The laughter.
Because too, like, even if somebody's like, I was like, oh, they're kind of cute. Like, if they're funny, that just brings their cuteness level to like a whole new level. And it's like, okay, you're really attractive now.
But you know what? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
That's good.
And you know what? Sometimes I've met some people that you're like, and don't laugh at me. I just always go, wow, that's some nice artwork.
Good job, Lord.
Yeah. But sometimes the nice artwork is beautiful on the outside, but they are crummy in their attitudes and on the inside. They don't have any social skills almost, So, you've learned that beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And I've learned that the inside is more attractive to me than the outside.
That's so true. And I've thought of that often, and like just how different Whitney's choices would be, like, and what I picked out like as a teenager in high school, or, even my early 20s, like how different that man would look to like the one that I would pick today. They're just, because before, when you're younger, you're like, oh, like he has a six pack or he's so hot, and now I'm just like thinking like, what kind of job you got? Like,
yeah, right, exactly.
How do you treat your mama?
Yeah.
Like, these are the important things that I want to know. And we'll get into more of those a little later on. But we're going to go to the next game. And I don't really have a title for it, but basically each generation has their own slang, right? When it comes to just anything, culture and dating and things. And so I thought it'd be fun for us to each, because when would you say you're dating, because you got married at 19. So what, is that like the 70s or 80s? Okay, 70s. So 70s. So you come from the 70s. I come, from born in the 90s, but, dating in the 2000s time. So I thought it'd be cool to tell each other what the slang is and have each of us guess. Like,
okay, I'm ready.
Yeah, each of us guess. So I guess I'll let you go first. What's a slang?
Whitney, you're a brick.
A brick. Mm-hmm. No, we talking like brick house? Is that the same? I know that song.
Yeah.
You're a brick. I would say, does that mean like you're solid, like maybe a little curvy or something?
Well, it came out in the 70s. Well, she's a brick house. Yeah. She's mighty, mighty. And then it says letting it all hang out.
Yeah.
So that part's not good, but it meant you were like a fine woman.
Fine. All right.
So I thought that was pretty funny.
I like that. You're a brick.
Yeah.
You have another one for me?
You've got the skinny.
You've got the skinny. I feel like skinny has been used for like information, like give me the skinny or something. Is that, it has? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So is that kind of what it means?
Yeah. I mean, you got all your thinking together. You got your thoughts together.
Okay.
You got the skinny.
You got the skinny. Go from brick to you got the skinny.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, I will give you a few of mine.
Okay.
Ghosting. Do you know what it means to be ghosted?
Well, I would think that it's somebody who disappears on you.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
So if you're like texting somebody or maybe you've been on some dates and then all of a sudden they just like drop off the face of the earth. You don't hear from them anymore.
Ghosted.
You got ghosted. And it happens a lot in 2022. All right. What about if somebody calls you a snack? No, it's not Dylan. Don't get no minds in the gutter.
That you're tasteful.
Tasteful.
Well, I'm trying to be clean here.
Yeah.
That'd be about the only thing that I
Yeah, so kind of, I guess, pretty close to brick. It just means like you're a babe or you're a honey, jaw dropper kind of thing. Like, man, she's a snack. And then sometimes if you want to go over the top, just be like, she's the whole meal.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And how about, let's see, when somebody slides into your DMs.
Slides into your DMs. Boy, you got me on that one. I'm just thinking, all I can see is picture someone come running, slide on the wood floor, and drop in,
It's like that, but electronically. So DM stands for direct message. So if somebody slide into your DMs, they typically know each other. Sometimes I guess you don't have to, but they just slide into your DMs. They send you a message just to reach out and connect. So somebody slides into your DMs. They want to get to know you.
I'm glad to know that.
Yeah.
In case somebody says that's technically savvy, they want to slide into my DMs. I'm getting educated, folks.
There you go.
All. Yeah.
And then I just wanted to, there was one that I'm not going to lie, I like Googled because I'm like, what are some slang? Because it just becomes like a part like, oh yeah, he slid into my DMs. Like that's just something that we say. You don't even think about it. But there was this one that was funny. So do you know what to be catfished means?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so somebody's like pretending to be somebody they're not. They're talking to you. Well, there was this term that popped up, and it's called kitten fishing.
Kitten fishing.
I was like, what is this? I never heard of it before. So according to, I think it was like askmen.com is where I got this from, but it's coined by the dating app Hinge. Kitten fishing is when you portray yourself in an unrealistically positive light in your online dating profiles. We all do this to some extent, but kitten fishing crosses the border into dishonest territory. Think photoshopped or very outdated profile pic or listing lawyer as your occupation when you're really a first-year law student.
Oh my gosh.
So kitten fishing. I knew catfishing, hadn't heard kitten fishing. So we both learned something new. Well, cool. That was fun.
Yeah.
I liked doing that. We can go on and on and on, but I do want to, with having fun, I do want to just talk about just our experiences, being it from different generations, but yet kind of finding ourselves in the same place as far as we're both single and we feel like God has somebody out there for each of us that is going to help us continue to run our race. And so I want to dive into some questions here. And I guess my first, why are you laughing at me?
No, because I'm just sitting here. We're talking about this on a podcast. We could put a little barb at the end. Call Whitney, phone number.
Oh, no.
It just crossed my mind.
Yeah.
We're not doing that.
No. And just so you know, we are not counselors or medical professionals,
Right.
so do not hold us to anything.
Yeah, we told you this might be wild. So.
Yeah. But I guess, so one of my first questions is, like we've already talked about, Chuck was an amazing man. You're married for 40 years, and he's gone to be with the Lord. And so how has it felt for you? Because I know there are going to be some ladies listening, and I'm hoping, my hope for this podcast is that it reaches a broad span of women, not just like 20-year-olds or 30-year-olds. Like I want it to reach just 18 to whatever, and just women in different situations. Maybe you've dealt with divorce. Maybe you've never been married. Maybe you don't want to even be married. I just want this to reach a wide demographic of women. And so you are a widow and, have recently become single in the last few years after 40 years of marriage. And so I just want to hear from your perspective, what has that been like for you, just to be, like we said, you got married at like 19 and now in your 60s, you find yourself single again. What has that experience been like for you?
Well, it's really hard when you've had a 40-year marriage plus. It was a little over that, but, you have your best friend, you have your partner, you have the person that you do everything with, and there may have been some codependent things, but I think we were more interdependent. We just truly loved being together, doing everything. So when that's taken away and it's gone, it leaves you pretty little isolated.
Yeah.
And in the beginning it was kind of shattering, and the biggest thing I think now that I'm approaching a 3-year mark is there was a part of me that died with him.
Yeah.
Identity. It's like, what do I want to do when I grow up? I don't know. What do I want? And I think that even in Chuck's death, the thing that really hit me in the last year was there was a side of love that I'd never seen before. And
Definitely.
because he had oral cancer, we couldn't kiss, and it's probably more intimacy than somebody wants to know, but it just changed a lot of everything. And one day Chuck told me he constantly wanted to hold my hand, even to the point that like Alicia and several different ones were taking pictures of our hands, which that's a treasure to me now.
Yeah, definitely.
And but he made the comment, he said, I never knew how important human touch was until I couldn't touch anymore.
Yeah.
And because of surgeries and bowel surgery and a bunch of different things, it really limited him completely. But the love that you have for each other still reaches out and still touches. So now being single and not having that, there's things that I miss. I miss laying in bed and just talking.
Yeah.
Until you fall asleep. And even if they fall asleep ahead of you, snuggling by them, or, things like that. And, a phone call during the day, hey, baby, just calling to tell you I love you, And with ministry things, and I know because we're talking about ministry stuff, have someone that's like-minded, like-spirited, and like-hearted loves the things you love. But yet not being afraid to challenge you. Do you really believe that? Do you think that? Is that really what you mean?
Yeah.
And so there's none of that anymore. And so now it's like, I felt like one night I had this dream, I guess. I do a lot of thinking. I'm asleep, but between 2 and 4 in the morning. And Jonah's picture of when he sat out on the hillside under, I don't know if it was an arbor or whatever it was, but God said, "Are you mad?" And he goes, "Yeah, I am." He goes, "What are you mad at?" He goes, "If I give something one day and take it away the next, who are you to be angry when there are thousands of souls that need to be saved?" And I was just like, oh, I get so tired of hearing that, And then I felt like the Lord said, "Debbie, do you believe that I can give you something better?" And I thought, well, you're really going to have to really make a pretty good
How can you top
thing.
the last one?
How can you top the last one? Not many people I know that can say they had the marriage that I did.
Right.
But at the same time, there were things that Chuck wasn't interested in or not capable of. And I think this is an opportunity that I can still have someone that can be a starfish chaser with me, that can be involved in ministry. It may be something different. Maybe God has a different angle for me to go into, or just, who knows. But new adventures. And I always love Romans when it says, the old life isn't worth one red cent. Bury it and move on. Yeah. And then to have an adventurously expectant, what's next, Papa? And so that's what I'm looking for. What's next, Papa?
Yeah.
Who do you have for me?
That's good.
And I'm not looking for the Mr. GQ. I'm looking for someone who's like-minded, like-spirited, can help challenge me in areas, take me higher, and release me into things. Yeah. But partners, you walk side by side. Sometimes they lead, sometimes you lead. But I really want someone that's a team player. Yeah. So. That's
good. Yeah, and we're going to dive deeper into like some of those characteristics that you look for now versus like what you would have when you were younger. But, and even as you mentioned, Starfish Chaser, if you don't know what she's talking about, go back and listen to our episode on about hearing the voice of God if you haven't already. It's a great one. I know you'll be encouraged by. And so I think, from my perspective, like I love hearing where people are at and just kind of like what their experience is, because sometimes we just get so wrapped up in like our own perspective and our own world and what we're thinking, because I'm someone that's just like, I've never been married, I'm single and eventually do want to get married and have a family. But something really that stuck out as you were speaking is just you learned a new side of love in your marriage that I think people my age don't necessarily think about. Like, I mean, we say it in the vows of like, or we hear people say it like
in sickness and in health.
Till death do us part. But I think we just kind of skip past that one, and just hope that never happens.
Well, they're always words until you have the experience of it.
That's so good.
You can read it. That's why I say sometimes, is this book knowledge or have you experienced this self? Oh, you've experienced? I'm going to listen to what you have to say. Yeah. If you just read about it, don't talk to me.
Yeah, it's so true. It's totally different when someone's walked through it, been through it, than someone that's just like studied it and observed it. Like there is a different kind of respect, I guess, that an honor that you give someone that's like actually walked the walk. And so, having asked you what your experience is being single now after being married, I just wanted to like touch too on my experience for those, because there are going to be ladies listening that you also like haven't been married, but it's something that you desire. I just think from my experience, I don't know another way at this point, like I've been in some relationships and stuff, but I think it's just kind of been one of those things that like, this is just kind of how it's always been. And I've had to be something I've found out, especially like into my mid to late 20s, is like I've just had to be really intentional about because you talked about like having that person to just kind of question or challenge or run things past. And especially like after my dad passed away, I felt like, and then Chuck passed away, and it was like I don't always have like that strong male figure in my life, which thankfully Alicia's husband Jim is incrable, and
he is incredible.
Yeah, like I
He's
thank
our
God
hero.
for him. I know he's probably like, God, get those girls married, so I'm not so responsible. Because we married Alicia, he got all of us. But sometimes it can be kind of just overwhelming or discouraging to be like have car issues or like the faucet's broke or something, and just thinking like, man, I have to. And even just fighting like a victim mentality with that of like, oh, woe is me. Like I don't have a man around the house to fix it, but just kind of being intentional. Like, okay, God, who are some resources that I can reach out to, or like maybe I can look this up on YouTube and learn how to do it myself, and just kind of becoming that just more independent and reliant upon God. But sometimes that's hard,
Yeah.
To completely because you're not with like financial stuff, like it's just like your income. It's just,
should I spend this money? I think I should.
Yeah, which that is a bonus. Like I will say, I don't have to run past anybody my purchases. I just go out to TJ Maxx and buy it. But just realizing though, like this is a one person income. Like I can't be missing a bunch of work or, I don't know, or just even the responsibilities of the home, cooking dinner, like all, is all on you. But in saying that, like God's been able to do some really deep work in me that I think had I gotten married younger, it would have taken me a lot longer to work through because I guess having somebody could have been like a crutch for me. And I'm not saying that that's people get married young, that's a crutch. I'm not saying that at all. But just for me personally, I've worked through a lot of things like in my mid to late 20s that would have been a lot harder to work through had I had the demands of like a marriage and a family on top of that. So I think that's kind of been my experience as a single that hasn't been married yet, but is hoping that one day that's coming. So, and I think really probably a lot of what I said are things that you kind of have experienced yourself too.
Yeah, I read one time, just to touch into what you just said, and this was about a man, that a lot of times men don't really know who they are till they're about 33, which is interesting because that's when Jesus went into ministry.
Yeah.
But the point that they were making, a lot of times they're locked in, hung up by, can't move forward because they've got families, debt, and so here they're coming into their own and maybe can finally figure out what they want to do. Well, we're like that as women. I don't know what the age difference is. I think it's earlier because we're smart. But
yeah,
anyway.
it is.
But I'm so glad for you. I went from basically being at home on my own for a little bit, then I got married. And so to me, what I admire what you're doing is you're experiencing life on your own. So you know how to troubleshoot. You know about spending money. You know if you spent that money that you're going to have to either earn it or make up for it or be good, like you've mentioned, good credit and things like that. You've also, when you come together with someone that God has designed for you, you're not just going from one authority to the other. You have a thinking process of, well, I've tried this or I've tried that, and it'll work.
Yeah.
And hopefully the same thing for them. You know, it's different. Because I went from one authority to the next, and we just had our Pampers on. And 19, I'd go back and talk to that 19-year-old, go, what are you thinking? You're too young. You need to experience some things. So I didn't go to college. There were things that I didn't do because I got married. Yeah. Then you have to work, and you have to do this. And, man, back then, we made $118 a week for me. Oh, my goodness. And I think Chuck made maybe $147. We thought we were wealthy. Yeah. And you look at it now, and you're just like, what were we thinking? But, it's one of those things that we did what we did. But 40 years later, so. Yeah,
definitely. You did something right.
Yeah.
That's good. And that's what I love. That's what I envisioned for this episode, too, is just having, like, that mama kind of, and someone that's like been there, done that, just kind of speak to me, but also to you ladies out there, and just to be an encouragement and to know like we're not alone, and just to even see, like you're saying, like these are the good things I see that's come out of what you've considered hard and what has been a hard like season at times.
But see, there's a dissatisfaction in being alone. We're made to be complete. Yeah. And so now there's a part of your instinct is to be complete. And so if we're doing it from the perspective of what we walk out in our lives, that completion's going to come with a godly man that's being placed with you. And hopefully he's running hard after God, already being prepared, already working out some of the little things that all the kinks are getting worked out, and he's going to be shaped fully into what you need at the time. And then you grow together as one person. Yeah. And you really do become one. You can, at least in my marriage, I mean, I know a lot of them don't, and I feel really bad when I hear stories like that, but we could finish each other's sentences. We knew what they were thinking. Yeah. You could look at each other with an eye, and it was like, it's time to go, without making a big scene, and then unless they avert their eyes and they won't look at you,
Then you talk about it when you get home, right?
Right. Then we have a little discussion.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point, too, I wanted to bring out is I feel like it can be perceived negatively for singles when they do want to find that companion. And I know for me, there have been terms like, well, you're desperate, or you're boy crazy, or you're like X, Y, and Z. And some of them, some dads just say that because they don't want their daughters to get married. Right, they're like, that's our little girl. But, there have been like instances where people say that, and I just want to like be that person that, and you've already said it, that no, that's a godly desire in you, and like how you walk that desire out is important, because there can be negative ways that cause a lot of bondage and soul ties and things that we don't want. But just that innate desire in us, like that's a God-given thing. Like from Adam and Eve, he literally took a part of Adam, made the womb man the woman, because he took the womb out of Adam to make the woman. And so there is, a natural desire there that's godly, and that's okay, that you want to be with someone else to become one.
Right. And that gets into whole other topics of, there's desires that we have, but if we can wait, I just think, what would happen if we waited and did things in a right order? Yeah. And to me, it's different at your age than it is at mine. I still want to follow a process that I think is God ordered. Yeah. I want the respect from a man, and I want them to treasure me, and you don't want to enter into situations where you're talking soul ties and things like that, because if things don't work out, right. And the other thing is, sometimes you have in your heart what you want, and so that when you are dating, it's kind of like, okay, check, this is, that checked out. But if there's things that don't, and I call them red flags. I don't know what your generation calls them.
Yep, actually red flags is very accurate.
It's kind of like that old robot in a Lost in Space, warning. Then why do you spend years wasting your time instead of just saying, you know what, you're a great friend, but I'm going to move on.
That's good. Well, and I think it's because we're afraid that what if something else doesn't come?
Oh, I went through that even at 19. I saw blue jeans, a white shirt, a beard, and aftershave. And I was like, that's my man.
Hey, baby.
And I got married very quickly. Like I said, if I went back and talked to myself, and not because it turned out bad, but I would say, get your education. Do these things for you first.
To make it easier on yourself.
To make it easier, because we struggled hard. Yeah. Chuck was a hard worker, but he worked on his hands and knees laying carpet. And if he'd gotten an education, and I had gotten an education, it would have eased up our situation a whole lot. Yeah. So we did things out of order. That's my personal opinion. But God was sovereign and always meeting with us. And so, but if you find that there's something that's not aligning, and that, that way process of thinking, if we can't talk this through and come to an agreement on some of that, there's no sense in wasting your time. Yeah. When I got married, I met Chuck 1 month, didn't see him for 2, met him in April. Met him in March. He asked me to marry him in April. Wow. And we got married in October. And I think we would have got married the next month, but I didn't want anybody to see, back in the 70s, everybody was pregnant. Everybody wore smock tops because you didn't know who was pregnant and who wasn't. Yeah. And I thought, I didn't want anybody to think I had to get married. So I waited 6 months. Yeah. And I don't even know I think there's sometimes you can know right away because God sovereignly drops that in your soul.
Yeah.
But I think there's sometimes at 6 months you're barely scratching the surface of who each other is, you know?
Yeah.
So, my opinion.
That's so true. Man, a lot of wisdom that was just shared and all of that. So I hope you ladies are taking notes or at least, listen back to this because, yeah, there's so often, like, we can get stuck in patterns of, or just in relationships that aren't serving us and we're not serving it, and just unhealthy things that it's like, and I think it all boils down to trust. Like, we have to trust that, okay, if this doesn't feel right in my spirit, like I've been praying about it and I don't have peace, I don't need to just stick around and try and make it work or make it happen or try and fix him to be who I want him to be,
Right.
because I'm afraid like God's not going to supply. Like, that right there tells me you're not trusting God, and you have God in a box. And listen, like, talking to myself here, there have been times where I'm like, well, it could work, like
It can work. I'll get my hammer and chisel out and
Exactly.
just chop this off and chop that off. Yeah, that's going to work.
Yeah.
That's not how it's intended to go.
No.
But I've been there. And even like when, like I had been engaged at 17, if that can be a real engagement, we're probably more going steady. But then when I met Chuck and I did get engaged, my heart was, I am going to be in this marriage forever. Because I came from a split home several times over.
Yeah.
So I didn't want that. I knew that.
Right.
But when I met Chuck, I was also afraid that I'd never meet anybody else. And so I grabbed onto that and was going to make it work.
Yeah.
And so there was a mentality in me back then that if I don't grab this one, I don't know what's going to happen. You know? So
and thankfully, like, you got a good one. God, like, covered you and protected you. But yeah, it doesn't always work out that way. And I just think it comes back to, I know I've had on several occasions, God's just had to work through, like, do you trust me? Like, do you trust that if you're just going about my business, that I'm going to take care of you? Like, if that's a desire, I've put in you, and that it's just something that, I've prayed about, and I feel like God is going to supply, but it just hasn't happened yet. And so can you trust in the waiting process? Because too, it's hard. Like, from my perspective again of like, I do want to have kids, but there is that like biological clock situation. Sure. If you want to have your own kids, and I know there are ladies listening, I know some of my girlfriends have said the same thing. It's like, I want to find the right guy, but at the same time, it's just like the clock is ticking with wanting to have my own kids. But just even I've had to just lay that to rest and be like, God, if I'm not, I still have some time, but like, if it doesn't happen where it comes through me, like, I'm willing to adopt, or I'm willing, to do those things. And just, because honestly, like, what does me trying to control it and have my grip on it, how is that helping anyways? Like, it's not. It's literally just making me sick, making me stressed out, burn out. And it's just Jesus said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And so
it's being in that place of peace again.
Yeah.
And staying in that place. Yeah.
That's good. So let's talk now about, and we've touched a little bit on it already, but what are the qualities that you look for in a potential spouse that maybe, like, now, from all the perspective that you have, 40 years of marriage, being in your 60s, what do you look for now in a potential spouse that maybe you didn't when you were younger?
Honor, integrity, character, moral standings. Now, when you're my age, people are already going to have history.
Yeah.
And they're going to have things that they've gone through. And there's sometimes that I feel like God has said, you need to look past their past. Because when they come into me, my grandmother used to say, the most incredible thing in life she's seen is a life truly changed by God.
Wow.
And when that has happened, it's very evident in someone's life. But, with me now, it's like there's things that I think about of if I would to remarry, will my family blend with his? Or does he have kids?
Yeah.
And can we be, you're not going to have like the Partridge Family, the
Brady
Brady
Bunch.
Yeah. It's not going to be the Brady Bunch, but can you accept what they're bringing to the plate?
Yeah, that's good.
Credit. Although credit should have been important when I got married.
Yeah.
I didn't know about credit. What's that? But now it's like, what do they have to bring to the table? And And what do I have to bring to the table?
Yeah.
Which sometimes isn't much,
Mm-hmm.
But so you start looking at things like that. Am I compatible? Do we have a good conversation?
Yeah.
Are they challenging to me? Where I'm going to grow, or am I going to be the mama?
Right.
I don't want to be the boss.
No.
I want someone that I can say, okay, this is what I think. But if I'm at an impasse in decision, I want to be able to say, what do you think? And we'll go with that. But I want to be sure that you're praying about it.
Yeah.
If you've prayed about it and this is your answer, then I'll run with that.
That's good.
So those are some of the kind of things, and I want to have fun and,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I know. As you were talking, I'm like, yep, that's what I meant. Because before it'd kind of be like, are you a Christian? And if they said yes, then it's like, all right, good, like on the same page. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, let's dive deeper into that.
Well, what's really funny, Whitney, with you saying that, I told you I had been engaged as a 17-year-old, and he told me he didn't believe in God. Well, that fixed it for me. He goes, there's something out there, but I don't know,
Yeah.
And so then I told God, well, if you're so big, I'm not in church, okay? So if you're so big, then you find me a man who prays. Well, when I met Chuck, he told me he prayed. I thought, this is
there we go. Check.
This is it, And again, in my innocence, I'm very fortunate that God had a hand in it. Now, did Chuck have baggage? Of course he did. I did too. Some of it wasn't very good on either parts of us. We grew together. And as we grew, we changed. But you can't just put one thing out there. Young Cho used to say that when he prayed for a bicycle, he got a bicycle. It was a crummy old bicycle. And then he wrote a whole chapter in a book that he said that God wants us to be specific. So, Whitney, what do you want in a partner? You want someone that's a couch potato. You want him to hike. You want him to be a barn dancer. I mean, it's like, well, when Young Cho got that red bicycle that he prayed about with the basket and the dinger bell and everything on it, that changed in how I started looking at things.
That's good.
And so I can be more specific. However, I always leave myself an out.
Yeah.
God, if there's something I need that I don't know I need.
Yeah, that's good.
But it's going to challenge me. I open myself up to that. But here's a few things I would like.
Yeah. I know. It's like if he has like blonde hair and blue eyes instead of dark hair and dark skin and dark, like that to me is completely open. But it's like, the important characteristics, like how is he serving God? Like, is he pursuing his passion and his purpose in life and things like that are non-negotiables? But what that can look like can be different, whether he's, in ministry or whether he's an engineer or whether he's a school teacher or like whatever. Definitely like leaving, like you said, that room for God to mix in there and do, because he knows what we need better than we could ever know what we need. Like I've learned that over and over and over again, things that he's taught me and shown me. I'm like, man, Lord, like I would have never gotten that on my own had you not done that. And so I think that's really important. But yeah, I definitely, just being a Christian doesn't check that box for me anymore, because I definitely have met Christian men, quote unquote Christian men, that don't live out the Christian lifestyle,
Right. But they're in the church.
Yeah.
And they can even hide in the church.
Yep, definitely.
They look good, but they're not functioning.
No.
I was a wedding planner for at least 20 years, maybe even more, and did weddings and things. And one of the things that this one couple that I was visiting with while we were planning their wedding said something that affected me so deeply. And they said, my husband is a combination of 8 or 9 people that I dated. But he's all the best of everybody.
Wow.
And I thought the purpose of dating is to find a mate, not so that one becomes your mate, or your partner, or whatever term people are using these days. But I find that to be true, that you start finding different pieces and parts of people that God puts together. And then the element of surprise. We keep saying even lately, expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
And I dated one person that just poured out treasures on me, bought things for me left and right. And then Chuck, he never thought about doing stuff like that, but he'd stop at the roadside park and go gather in a big chunk of flowers big enough he could hardly carry him,
Oh.
full of bugs, and bring him home just as proud as a little kid,
Oh.
It was precious.
Yeah.
But the element of surprise, and so, and at first, when I first saw him carry that first bundle in, I was like, what is this? Because it was like ragweed and everything in there. It was all kinds of stuff. But that got to be a treasure to me.
Oh.
And even to the last thing that he ever did to me, he had the boys go out, put him in a wheelchair. He couldn't even see, but he could smell the flowers when he came home. And 4 days later, he died. But he had Matthew cut him an iris, and he didn't even have the strength to hold that one flower, hardly. But he came over and he just told me how much he loved me. And so from the beginning with the wildflowers and the bugs to the final act of giving me that flower, it was very touching.
Yeah.
Very touching.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so just finding, I think really for me now, it's just important to find someone who can run, and you've talked about just run this race with me, because for so long I'd find guys that were like kind of partway there or like on the road, but it's like you said, getting out that chisel and hammer and stuff and trying to make them into something that they're not. And
it's not our job.
No, thank you.
It's not our job. It isn't. No.
Nope. And really, it's not fair to them, first of all, because you're trying to, instead of accepting and, loving them where they're at, not that people shouldn't change and grow, because we always should, but we're just immediately, what can I fix about you? What can I change about you? And that's not fair for that person. But at the same time, it's not fair for you to settle either if they're just not, like you said, the right fit, or if you don't see them being able to run alongside you in this race, then you shouldn't have to settle for that either. And so just realizing, like you said before, we can be friends. And sometimes maybe you don't want to be friends with them, but just, you're a great person, but just not the right person for me.
Well, even the fixing part, Whitney, I know we all go through life where it almost comes to a point that you almost can feel like you're being bullied, because it's like, I don't need someone pointing out every flippin' thing that's wrong with me. I probably know some of those things better. And like Granny said one day to all of us girls, hey, I see things you don't see. And so I depend on someone to point out things. And yes, we are to grow. We are to become stronger. We are to position. I don't want to be the same that I was a week ago that I am today.
Right.
I want to be different even after this podcast when I leave here, because there's revelation that's come out in our conversation.
Definitely.
And even if it's just a few nuggets, it's changing us, You want a partner that's going to build you up, encourage you, and motivate you. I don't want someone that I have to stuff into a mold to make them fit what my expectation is. Because you know what disappointment is? Expectations that are not met.
Yeah, that's so true.
And so I want the kind of expectations that God can add to me. It's going to be, you know what? You didn't know you needed this, but I'm going to have this person challenge you in this area, and they're going to encourage you, and they're going to motivate you, and they'll see a weakness, but because they're strong, that weakness is made strong because of the person you're with. And also, if like the fella that you might get, we might get, it'd be different people, but if they're weak, then let me help make them strong. And that's that give and take. That's to me and I don't know all the psychological terminology, but that's where I think about being interdependent. Like cogs in a wheel, you work together. Everything that's wrong with me and everything that's right with him will blend. And then what doesn't fit, it'll be up to God to work on. As we grow together. Yeah,
that's good, because I definitely, it's been portrayed in the church a lot over the years, especially, from your generation and your parents and stuff, that, the man's just supposed to be, he's the head of the home and he's just the final say, and just kind of portraying women as in this helpless position. And the Bible does say that the man is the head of the family. And so that's not, to me, that's not an if. That's something that's God ordained. But I think the church mistakenly has shed that, put it in a different light of where the man lords over you and you don't have a say. And that's never how God designed it. Even in, with Adam and Eve, the word helper there, when they're talking about Eve, is actually a word that's used for the Holy Spirit too,
right.
throughout the scripture. And so that sheds a whole new
Right.
light on like, man, I'm not just this like little helpless woman. Like I can be as powerful as like Holy Spirit in this relationship. I can be that kind of helper. But then yet culture today has swung the narrative way to the other side. And it's like, let's beat down men, let's browbeat them. And let's like,
Right.
future is the woman and like all this stuff. And I'm, of course I'm all for women having like equal rights and, getting the same pay and equal opportunity and all those things. But I don't believe in that we have to beat men down to do that.
Right.
We
I
have
agree
to
with you.
we have to rightly identify men and we have to rightly identify women and help them step into their place so that it's not about one having more power than the other. It's about we both bring different things to the table, and how can we be better as a couple? How can we be better as a family and as a society when we're both rightly given our place at the table? And I think that's so important. And I even think back on Catherine Kuhlman. I read a biography on her one time, and she got married. It was kind of just one of those things where she just wanted to get married and just kind of married the first one that she, kind of, at least what this biography made it sound like. And it didn't seem like it was a good situation. And he was an evangelist. And so suddenly she went from preaching and these miracles happening and things to getting married. And this guy just had her sit on stage while he preached and evangelized. And she no longer was able to operate in the way that God, intended for her to operate. And then eventually that ended in divorce. And then then that's when her ministry like grew, and she was in stadiums and people were being brought up from the dead and things like that. But that was just such a powerful picture to me of, Whitney, you need a man that, not necessarily saying he needs to be in ministry, but just someone that will support you where you're at, not put you down, that will let you, you're a partner. And like you said, in areas where I'm weak, maybe he's stronger and can help me grow. And where he's weak, maybe I'm stronger and I can help him grow. But where we're both rightly identified, I guess, is, and just like set up in a position to where it's not about who has the most power or anything like that, but it's just about what can each of us bring to the table to make this a better, family.
I had a spiritual mom I used to work with at a publishing company, and her name was Betty. And she used to make a comment. She said, marriage is like being a king and a queen. A queen can rule under godly authority, but she has great power. She can turn the neck of the king's head. Yeah. And so like you think about Esther, we can be born for such a time as this. Yeah. And I want that godly authority in my home so that we can change nations. Yeah. But I don't want to be like what you're saying about Catherine Kuhlman and set to the side. I don't want to have competition in my own home. Yeah, that's good. I want to be able to be supported. You look at Jim and Alicia. Yeah, they know their place.
My sister and her husband.
Yeah, they have an incredible marriage.
Yeah, they do.
And Jim pulls alongside, and he's administrative and apostolic minded. I mean, he's on the task. You barely mention it. He's looking it up, doing it.
That's so true.
And he doesn't complain, and he's not going, well, Alicia, I wish I could play the piano. I'd sing up there if it was me. He's probably going, not, But he fills such an incredible role. Mm-hmm. And, whether we're even in the church, whether we're cooking, cleaning, doing other things, working a job, being a nurse, being a doctor, or being a maid, if we're doing what we've been called to do, we're filling our roles and filling our position. Yeah. And that's what's important. And even in a relationship, I hear your heart cry. Mm-hmm. It's still mine even today. Yeah. And it's, I'm to the point I'd rather be single than to be at war in my household. Now, if I can
say that again, that's important.
I'd rather be single than being at war in my own house. Yeah. And I've seen too many families that there's literally their home is a battleground. Yeah. Because they weren't careful. Mm-hmm. Or prayerfully, or God is not the head of the house. Yeah. And that's what, like, as a single living on my own, like, I've cultivated such a sanctuary in my home, and it's peaceful. And when I go there, like, I know I can just be myself, be vulnerable, be open, and just to think to
just to get married, just to rush into something, and then not have that sanctuary anymore. Like, that's a scary thought to me.
It is.
Well, this has been some good stuff. I think we've even dived deeper than I thought we would, which is awesome. Like, I'm all all for that. Like you say, just revelation comes through conversation. And that's what I love about talking with like-minded, like-hearted believers. So I guess to wrap this up, I want to ask you specifically, and then I'll answer it myself, but what piece of encouragement do you have for the woman that's listening who's in the same or similar position as you? So maybe, had a great marriage, maybe a not so great marriage, maybe divorced, but finds herself later in life kind of back in the game when she's been out a while and is not really sure, what to do from here. What kind of encouragement do you have for that woman?
Well, I just really have so much experience here, but I think that if I was to give advice, if I was talking to some women, whether they were younger or middle-aged, been divorced, lost a spouse, our instinct as women, we're nurturers. And men think with their head. I mean, they're analytical, and not all. We all bounce back and forth a little bit with some of that. But as women, don't feel your need because you have the instinct that you want to be with somebody.
Come on.
I mean, sometimes we'll just take the first thing that comes along. And listen, men are the same way. They are going to do everything they can to swoon you and chase you and well, we live in a day that it's a lot of darkness out there. And so sometimes their motivation's not always pure.
Right.
And you don't want to get hung up in something and found out you just got used. And I even think this time, like I said earlier, I'd rather stay single. I don't have to ask anybody for permission to do stuff, but when things break down, I can't go, well, now I'm alone and the refrigerator broke down and what am I going to do? And that happened the day before Christmas Eve.
Yeah, real life scenario here.
Yeah, and I was just like, find time to be alone. And I was a little ticked.
Yeah.
I was a little ticked. Now, I happened to have two boys that were there and one son just took over and just, this is what we're going to do, and it got done. And I have a Cadillac of a refrigerator in my house right now.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet one.
It's a pretty sweet one.
It's the Mac Daddy.
And he worked a big deal on that.
Yeah.
But I thought, what if I didn't have children to help me? And I know that there are a lot of people out there that have been, especially widows that I have met. And I know I am a widow, but I just feel like God just keeps telling me, I don't want you to identify with that. I want you to keep running because I have need of you.
Yeah, your identity is more.
It's more than just
that.
being a widow. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'll always be Chuck's widow. And that'll always have been a great marriage. And I hope that someday if I share a partner again, they'll know he meant a lot to me. And these are the reasons why. But I'll learn to love you differently.
Yeah.
And then I still have things to give. Maybe that I never experienced in the first marriage. You know, but redo the question because I lost my point.
Oh, no, it's just what encouragement do you have for the woman in that, your position?
And then I think prayer is a huge thing. Is just start praying for the person that you believe for God to send.
Yeah, that's good.
Start praying about their finances and start praying about their character issues and start praying about, even when you're young, you don't want to meet somebody that's not going to be able to help walk out, provide for children and things that are on your heart.
Right.
And so it's like praying for that soulmate, that's just going to dovetail with you.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that.
No.
And asking. And then, Kathleen, my spiritual mom, is always telling me, stay above reproach, keep your feet in clear water, don't muddy your stream. And sometimes don't settle for less when there could be so much more that's coming. Yeah. But that's a trust issue with you and God. Will you provide for me? I felt like he said to me, with the story about Jonah, do you believe I can give you something better? Well, I'm not trying to outdo Chuck. I just want someone to walk with that loves what I love. And I want to learn to love what he loves. There'll be new things that'll come in with them too. And so it's like, open my eyes to see, open my ears to hear the things of the Spirit. And what was yesterday is not anymore. So what's coming for the days ahead?
Yeah.
And how can I be positioned in that place?
That's good.
And you know what? God may not find another person for me. I may be just too much, you know.
No, not true.
But and I can't even believe I'm saying this on a podcast, but my heart's desire is for the camaraderie, the friendship, the simple things.
Yeah.
It's simple things.
Right.
So.
That's good. Well, yeah, and I just think that you said some very key things there of when disaster strikes or when things get really tough, not giving into that feeling of like, my refrigerator just broke, man. I don't have a man to help fix this. And sometimes we'll go through our phones and find a man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if some of us ladies are honest, it's like when you get in those tight positions, or I'm really lonely and I'm going, or something really hard happened, I lost my job or whatever, an inclination can just be to, okay, let me call some guy to fix that, to whatever. But just being willing to be strong and steadfast and like, okay, yeah, I'm feeling this way, but I'm going to choose God's path over my own. Like I'm going to choose to maybe withhold right now because I'm waiting on something better that God has for me. And that's such a key thing. And then the second thing too was coming from the perspective of you've had a great marriage and, thinking like, could God give me something better? And, you're just saying, I'll love him differently. And I want ladies to catch that, especially if you've had a great marriage or you really have loved someone and now it's going to be someone new, to just, one doesn't have to be greater than the other. It can be different. It can be like, there'll be things that you'll always prize that you and Chuck had. And there'll be things that, if the Lord provides another man for you that you'll prize from this marriage that maybe you didn't have in the other, but that doesn't make one, one person better than the other. It's just different.
Right. At my age, I know now 4 couples that have remarried. All of them have been with a spouse that has died. One of them has been each one of them lost a spouse. And they did something that was very unusual to me. In their dining room, they have a wall that they have their first spouse on there with family portraits.
Yeah.
In honoring what had been.
Wow.
But stepping into the new that God has given. And that really blew my mind.
Yeah.
To be that open.
And that mature.
And not to be competitive, not to be anything like this. And then there's one other point that I wanted to bring up that I just thought of when you said something triggered me. When you've been married for 40 years and you're thinking about dating, and I don't have a lot of experience in that, just saying, but you think differently. Like when you're out with someone, I don't think of just holding hands because I've had 40 years of an amazing physical, intimate life.
Yeah.
And so I have to put the brakes on.
Yeah.
And just go, no, you can't go there. And you're thinking, but I'm trying to be real.
Yeah. No, it's good.
And so not getting into a place where the first thing you can think is, well, why don't you come over and hang out, watch movies, stay the night?
Yeah.
I don't want to go there either.
Right.
Because I don't want to muddy my stream. I don't want to muddy what God's doing in me.
Yeah.
And I want that person to respect me and honor me. But listen, it's bad enough when you're a teenager going through that and your hormones kick in.
Yeah.
But it's bad when you've had something for 40 years.
Right.
And then you go 3 or 4 years and there's been nothing. And then you don't think that you don't have instinct, desire,
right.
Things like that. I'd just like to make out with somebody.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Keep
it's
it
just
real.
getting real,
No, it's true though. And even people that haven't been married but have been and, had sexual relations in other relationships that. But then when you're wanting to do it God's way,
right.
we know that that's all for the context of marriage.
Right.
So that is something to think about. Man, what parameters do I have to set up for this next one? Because I don't want it to be for maybe the ones that haven't been married, I don't want it to be like those other dead end relationships.
Right.
Or, in your situation, you had it in the context of marriage, but now it's I don't want to muddy my streams. I don't want to start this relationship off on the wrong foot.
Right.
And so even thinking of like, what parameters, what boundaries do I need to talk about with this guy so that it doesn't go there, so that we can honor God in our relationship.
Well, and at my age, you're going to have that on both sides more than likely. And life experiences in the 60s, you know, and then how do you be real about that conversation? Because you know what? This is going to... Oh my gosh. You know, could I put on the moves? I could.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I know what to do.
Yeah. You've had some practice.
I've had some practice for 40 years. But that doesn't mean I operate in that.
Right.
And I don't even know how that person's going to respond, because that's not going to be who I was with.
Yeah.
It's going to be different. And so that's a whole new exciting challenge to come about too. But what do you do in the meantime? Because, you know, there's going to be things that'll kick in, and you think way beyond, you know, what you would normally do. Like for instance, Chuck, I might just put my hand on his thigh and keep it there. Like if we're driving, well, I'm not going to do that dating.
Right.
You know, it's like I can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, how do I act? Do I sit in here to keep my seatbelt on, tuck my hand in the seatbelt? I mean, you know, so there's things like that I'm having to think through. You know, and then even if you go out right now, because of my age, the waitresses automatically think whoever I'm with, we're married.
Right.
Oh, y'all are so cute. Well, you know, it's our first date. You know, I mean, you know,
right.
You know, so it kind of, it's a different kind of awkward than when it is when you're younger.
Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting perspective. Yeah, and I just think there's so many pieces of encouragement and just things, you know, wisdom to give. And I think just building a community, a strong community around us is like very important, because even like just having like our conversations now, like it's just cool to have that perspective of, I mean, you do have the marriage perspective, but too, like hearing some of your thoughts, I'm like, I've thought that too with like singleness and, you know, some of the struggles or like the good things and so I guess for my piece of encouragement with the ladies is just like build a network around you and build a community, and not only of just like, you know, young women or your age women, like whatever, but even just, you know, like we've talked about, hey, if my fridge breaks down, like who am I going to call? And just kind of having in place of like, okay, I could reach out to my brother-in-law, or I could reach out to this family friend, or, you know, you had your sons, like just having those resources. And I think I see it as a network because I'm a business-minded
but that's
woman.
really a great way to look at it.
Yeah, and so of course I'm thinking like networking, and it's not to like just use people up, but it's like, hey, you know, these are things I have to offer, these are the things you have to offer, and it's not a, you know, romantic relationship, but just having friends, you know, that you know you can rely on to call for X, Y, and Z.
Well, sometimes even just for advice.
Yeah.
You know, it's really refreshing to have that you have an intimate conversational relationship, even though you never know it's going to go into a physical relationship or marriage. But to have that you can call on. And I've seen you have friends that you're like that with.
Yeah.
They're treasures.
Yeah, they are.
They're treasures. But, and when it's not taken out of context and out of perspective, it's wonderful.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important to just to be intentional with the time. And that's a word that's been like a theme for us in our episodes, but just, I've learned, because there's some things I feel like with marriage, just from being an outside observer, that you can just kind of go with the flow with, like you kind of have a built-in friend and you just kind of work with each other's schedules and you just rely on each other. But as a single person, it's just you, and it can be easy to just be like, okay, I'm just going to like stay in tonight and not doing it, you know, like, and just kind of even self-isolate at times, which I guess you could do in a marriage as well. But I've found that I have to be really intentional about just like planning things out, and just calling up like my friend Casey and being like, hey, why don't we hang out this weekend? Or I know I have a couple of friends, Casey and Sam, that we're planning a trip to go hike at the Grand Canyon later this year, because I have some family that lives close there. And so we're just going to spend, you know, 4 or 5 days and go do those kinds of things, because I think sometimes I'd have the mentality of like, oh, when I get married, like we'll travel together or we'll, you know, but now that that's not really something that's like I see happening anytime in the near future, it's like, well, still travel. You know what I mean? Like, why can't I go make that trip? Or like, why can't I go see that movie by myself or with a friend? Like, why have I not been doing these things when I can be doing them, you know?
And see, that's a problem that I have, is staying isolated sometimes. Because I was used to, I mean, it was always Chuck and I,
Right.
Chuck and I. And that's not the case anymore. And so I'm having to learn to do things by myself,
Yeah.
fix things by myself, you know, do chores by myself. If I don't pick up, I can't complain about anything.
Right.
You know,
You're
I
the only
can't
one to
go,
blame.
I'm the only one that left that mess. Okay, I
Yep.
better clean it up, you know. And so where before you could go, okay, who did this? You know, and I can even remember when it went down to just two of us. Chuck one day goes, who ate this? And I go, well, gee, Chuck, if it wasn't you, the kids aren't here. I guess it was me.
Right.
You know, but, you know, even how my kids would stuff things underneath the couch.
Yeah.
You know, because they were too lazy to take it to the trash. It's that kind of theme. You know, it's like, if you don't get up and do this, you're going to do it later. And if you let 10 things accumulate it, you're going to have 2 or 3 hours worth of work.
Yeah.
You get it out, put it up. I mean, I'm having to tell myself, I might even talk out loud to myself now. I don't know.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
How are you going to hide it?
You know, it's like, I don't go, what are we going to do? You know, but I
Yeah.
mean, but there's things like that too, you know.
Yeah, definitely. But just knowing, I think the whole purpose behind this was just to be open and transparent about we're all in this together. You know, if you're a single woman, no matter how you got there, like we're in this together. We face a lot of the same struggles, but I love the different perspectives that we all bring to the table. Like even just our conversation today, there's things that you pointed out that I'm just like, man, that's so good. And there's things I pointed out that you're like, yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
And just, you know, just being willing to be open and transparent with each other. Like I said, have a community of like-minded, like-hearted people that you can just share your feelings, share life with, I think is a key way to maximize what God has for each of us in this season. So, and he does have a plan and a purpose for each and every one of you listening, for us here in the studio. God hasn't forgotten about you. And I want you to be sure of that. If there's anything you leave with today, is that God sees you and he knows you and he loves you and he has a plan for you. And that doesn't always go the way that we hoped it would. I know like your plans with Chuck, like didn't go the ways that you thought they would. You know, I know you would have loved more time with him. And so, and I would have loved for my life to have turned out different. But at the same time, like now I know that God has divinely had his hand on my life. I know he's divinely had his hand on yours. And even when things don't turn out like we hope that they would, God brings beauty from the ashes.
He does.
And he brings purpose from the pain. And, you know, like they say, you'll get a testimony from the test, you know?
You know, one thing I think is really important here is that to realize we go through seasons and cycles of things. Seasons just automatically change. Cycles, they can repeat till we break out of that cycle. And one of the things that I think is really important with things you're saying to the women and things that we're commenting on here is we're in the middle of an identity change. I am.
Yeah.
And when you're not who you used to be, and I'm even becoming more not who I even am right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm stepping out of what I am right now
Right.
into being positioned for more things to come. And what does that look like? And all I can do is just say, what's next, Papa?
Yeah.
You know, there's adventures ahead, things to do, people to meet. And I want when I step into the new things that are coming, that I don't hang that up. Like we've talked about Chuck a lot, but you'll notice I don't talk about him a whole lot.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm having to let go so I can grab a hold of what's coming.
Yeah.
And I will never forget.
Right.
I will always honor.
Right.
That's my children's father. But Debbie is changing.
Yeah.
My identity's changing, who I am, the way I think, the way I operate. You know, how I handle things.
Yeah.
It's all changing. And I can either be stuck and sit at home in isolation, or I can start stepping into the new things.
Yeah.
You know, there's
that's
people
good.
that have, like Vicky, prayed over me one day, and she said, "You're going to run again." And I started laughing because I'm thinking, I didn't like running back then, but I knew what she meant.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start running into the new things. And the only way to do that is to move forward.
Yeah.
And then take little nuggets out of what we've talked about today. Not everything's going to apply to everyone.
Right.
But there's going to be a handful of things that will touch someone. They're going to go, oh, I needed to hear that I need to not be crippled by this. And I need to move forward.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing back. There's nothing in the back. It's gone.
Yeah.
And so, but it's my history. It's my legacy.
It's your story.
I have incredible children that have come out of that. But now it's a new day. And my kids have their life, and here I am with mine.
Yeah.
And when like my boys are in the 40s. When I was 40, I wasn't leaning on my parents. Well, they weren't in a place that was conducive for my growth still, know. But there's things that are coming for me, if I believe what he said, that are going to change for me.
Yeah.
And I want to find out what those things are.
Yeah, me too.
I'm excited to find out. And I pray that for you, Whitney, that God honors the desire of your heart, that you become complete in the things of him. And even for the listeners out there, we want to be complete. And we can't be what we've been.
Yeah.
It's going to be what's coming.
Yeah.
And I think the other big lesson is God is teaching me through all this, enjoy today. Enjoy the now, because what's coming is not here yet, but I can still be content where I'm at.
Yeah, that's big.
And I've had to practice that.
That's big.
I'm not always content. Sometimes I get negative and whiny, and then I'm not hearing. Then I have to slap myself silly and say, move on.
Yeah, that's good. Being content where God has you now. And there's a great verse. It's in the Message version. But it's Paul speaking, and I can't think right now of the exact reference, but he's just talking about don't be wishing you were somewhere else or with someone else. Like where God has you right now is where you're supposed to be. So live, love, obey, and believe right there. And I'm paraphrasing that, but it does say something really similar to that. And so that's what I want to encourage you ladies with is that just find contentment with the Lord where you are right now and live and obey and love and believe right where he has you, because there's purpose exactly right where you are. And so thank you, Debbie, for being on the show again.
You know what? This was kind of nerve-wracking at the beginning, but you know what? I think there's some nuggets here that are revelatory for people. A ton
of nuggets.
and us being naked and transparent, it's okay, So
yeah, and for those of you who aren't watching the video, we're not really naked.
Yeah.
You're just listening to the audio.
I meant being transparent, okay?
Just want to throw that one out there. This video would get like a million views.
It's a 70s term versus now.
There you go. One of the slang.
Yeah.
But yeah, ladies, thank you so much. If, these episodes encourage you or inspire you and make you just feel seen and known, feel free to share it with another single lady in your life, because we're building a community here where we all just are chasing after God, our purpose and healthy relationships. So I would love to have your crew tag along on this journey. Yeah. So we will see you next time on The Beauty of Becoming. Thanks for listening to the Beauty of Becoming podcast. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, let me know by leaving a positive rating and a comment of how God used today's episode to speak to you. And don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you listen so you're notified whenever a new episode is posted.